Hi, I'm Harry McEntire, and this is FrConventions. Yeah, I absolutely do. It was a strange, not a strange situation, but I think an unusual situation in as much as when you first auditioned for series one, you either auditioned to play Uhtred or Alfred. And my agent called me and said, I've got this audition. It's for this show called The Last Kingdom. I want you to know they don't think you can do it. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, they think you're a comedy actor. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but my agent was really good at saying the things that I needed to hear to motivate me. So I had this script for Alfred and I just worked so hard on it. I really prepped it and thought about it really deeply. And I knew that I was probably, I was 23 when I auditioned for the show. So I knew I was probably too young, but I just thought, I've got to give this everything that I can possibly give it. And so I went in and I met, and I then got a phone call saying, it's not going to work out for Alfred, but they have this other character that they've got you in mind for. And they sent me the script for Æthelwold. And I read that and I thought, oh, I'm going to get it. I thought that about other parts and been wrong, but I have also thought that about things and been right. But I just had this sense that this was the kind of character that I would really suit, and this was the kind of thing that I was really looking for and hoping for. And then read for it again, and then met Nick Murphy and Chrissy Skins, the director and co-exec on season one, and Chrissy, who produced pretty much all of the first 3 seasons. And yeah, I remember getting the job and just it was and it remains the biggest thing I've ever done, and it's the kind of show that I would love to watch. And so I was just so stoked about it. And then my first day on set, I was so nervous, and I was working. It was a scene where I'm kind of being lambasted for being drunk, and they brought me in, and I'm just kind of told off by my father. And Nick, the director, said to me, feel free, just improvise your way into the scene. And I was like, okay, it's like the year 870. Like, I don't know how to improvise it, but I didn't want to say no. So I sort of fluffed about trying to improv in Saxon era dialogue. And I'm pretty sure it was terrible because none of it made the edit. But even from then, it was just a lovely group of people, like a really kind, supportive group of people who wanted each other to succeed. And that was the thing about the show in general. It's a group of people who want each other to do well. And that's quite unusual, to have that many good people. And the atmosphere that we had working on the show together was amazing. The thing for me, that the overriding feeling when I was starting it was just one of excitement, because this was the kind of part I'd really been looking for. And I remember saying to my wife, if I get the chance to go where I think he could go, this could be so exciting. And essentially the culmination of that was the arc that we saw over the 3 years. So I was really ready for a job like that. I'd worked on a couple of TV shows, that had been multiple series shows, and I'd really enjoyed it, but I was really ready to kind of start to be able to shape a character. And I was so fortunate that because the scripts were being written as the show was going on, I was kind of being written, almost like I was being written into stuff, because they liked having the character there. And so the character was growing all the time, but that growth was sort of shaped around my interpretation of the character, which was really exciting and is really unusual. And then, the neurosis, I think it can either be a burden or it can be fuel. And I think what it made me do was it meant I approached my work really conscientiously, and I cared about it a lot, and I wanted to do good work. And the majority of the time that serves you really well. I mean, sometimes it doesn't, but the majority of the time it serves you really well. So yeah, I mean, I just worked really hard on that show. And I think you were, again, I always come back to it, but you were surrounded by people who wanted to work hard and to whom it mattered. There wasn't really anyone there who you felt was just there to pick up the paycheck. There were, people really cared about the show and wanted to succeed. We realized when series 1, the kind of senior members of the cast were, like Adrian Bauer, who played Leia Fritsch, Ian Hart, Simon Kunz, who played Oda the Elder. And we found that, what they did, having done the work for as long as they had, was they recognized that there just needed to be a sense of company and a sense of ensemble and people looking after one another. And they were making sure that we were, people were going out for drinks and people were going out for dinner. Because when you're away from home, you necessarily create more of a family. And I know it's such a cliche, but you genuinely did feel that way. And then the problem is, of course, and I know that 2 of those people were still alive, but there's such a high turnover of cast. You sit down for the read through of series 2. And I think this is correct, that you have a character number when you start working on the show, and it's sort of when your character comes into the series, but also how important they are. And I think my character number in series 1 was 46. And I think by the end of the show, I was 7. So that is how many people had died in order for me to move up the ranks. And so season 2, when we had, Arnus and Mark and Millie, and then we had Toby and James coming in later, and of course a whole new selection of fantastic Scandinavian actors. Me and David and Eliza kind of went, right, well, it's now our job to set a tone. It's our job to make sure everyone's added to the WhatsApp group, make sure that everyone knows that we're going to go out for a curry after the read through, make sure that everyone knows that this is the pub we're going to be in, this is the bar we're going to be in. And by doing that, you could go out any night to any one of our sort of 3 or 4 haunts and just find members of the cast and the crew hanging out together. I've worked on, I've been acting for 14 years, and I've never encountered something like that in quite the same way before. It was remarkable. It was just a group of people who loved each other and continue to do so. Stuff like this, events like this. I love meeting the fans and doing all that stuff, and I also love the opportunity to see the rest of the cast. It's such a treat. The death scene was a tricky one because it came at the end of a long week, and it was a Saturday shoot, which we didn't do that many of. We did a few of them. But so we'd already done 5 days that week of the battle. And this was, of course, at the point where I had this prosthetic on, and the prosthetic would take 2 to 3 hours to put on. It was quite uncomfortable. And I remember being just exhausted coming to shoot that scene. And sometimes you go to start a scene and everything is firing, and you just you're in the character, and it flows. You kind of get into this state of flow, and it just comes really, really easily for you. And this just was not one of those days. It was really hard. And fortunately, we had a great director, and I had Alex in the scene with me. And we obviously had, Chrissy, the producer, had been there the whole time. And I knew this was a really, really, really important scene, but I was just tired. I was just kind of empty. And so that's when you fall back on the fact that you've prepared as much as you can, and you've controlled all of the things you can control in the build up to the shoot. And you just trust the people around you. You trust that Alex is going to give you fantastic stuff to work with, which he always does. You trust that Ed, the director, is going to guide you in the correct way. You trust that Chrissy is also going to be there to guide you. And so that scene was a complete collaboration between everybody. My work in that scene is a result hugely of the other people who were on set that day, because I had no idea how it was going. Absolutely none. I didn't know if it was going well or if it was if it was an absolute disaster, other than the fact I just had to trust the people who I was working with. So then to see it come out, and for it to have worked in the way that it did, was a huge relief for me, actually, more than anything else. I was so relieved. And then in terms of the reaction, I'm glad. there are certain people, Æthelwold's the kind of character that people have an opinion on. And I think that's the reward. I don't, you know, as long as no one's being aggressive with me, I don't mind if you hated the character or if you loved the character, because because either way it meant you were engaged with him and you had an opinion on him and he made you feel something. And the worst thing anyone can say is, oh, the character was kind of, yeah, he was kind of there, like he was kind of boring. And Æthelwold was many things, but I don't think he was ever boring. And so I'm, you know, very grateful for the reaction that I had from people, and the fact that, you know, the very, very few Team Æthelwold people, although there are a few, they do exist out there, that they, you know, that they believe in him so much is amazing. And the other people that hate him so much is kind of equally fantastic as far as I'm concerned. If you'd said 3 years ago that we'd be able to do conventions online, everyone would have laughed at you. But the fact that the world has been made so much smaller by, you know, things like Zoom and other kind of video and technology, I think is fantastic. You know, the people who support the show are the reason that the show continued to be made. And if, you know, I started, like I answered that first question when I said, you know, I knew where I wanted him to go. I knew that I wanted him to kind of have that arc. We had that arc because people watched the show and because people cared about the show and because people supported it. And so being able to sort of, in some ways, connect with those people and say thank you, I think is brilliant. And also, you know, I'm a fan of stuff, and I understand, I think, that feeling of of just wanting to understand more and more. And, you know, years and years ago, it would have been reading newspaper cuttings, and then it would have been Googling. And now it can actually be going to the person and speaking to the person. And if I can give someone 5 or 10 minutes of my time at a convention and then feel like they've had value from that, that's very important to me. And stuff like this is amazing for facilitating that. I would absolutely love to come to Paris. I mean, I'd love to come to Paris under any circumstances, but I'd love to come to Paris for a convention. I mean, yes, if there's a way I could be there and the organisers wanted me to be there, then I would love to be there. Absolutely love to. I will absolutely watch it. I have no idea what to expect. Like none whatsoever, because I stopped reading the books after my character died. And so even series 4 was kind of a surprise to me. There are bits that I knew, there are kind of plot points that I know, but that's just from the books or from doing some reading about the rest of the story after I'm not in it. But yeah, I mean, a film is a really exciting thing. I was really hoping that we were going to do like the end of Return of the Jedi, you know, me and David and Ian sat on a wall, you know, as the last shot. But so far the phone hasn't rung, so I'm assuming we're not going to come. I'm certainly not coming back as a ghost. But I think it's a beautiful way to round it off. I think it's a really exciting opportunity for the people who are still in it as well, you know, to kind of hopefully translate some of that success into a different medium. And I think it's like a worthy of fit. Hopefully, I'm sure it will be, but, you know, moving into a film is a really fitting end to this kind of incredible journey that everyone's been on. So yeah, I can't wait to see it. Well, no, because the problem was you're not allowed to tell anyone that you're doing it. So I didn't, it was given a working title. So it wasn't called Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And I didn't know anyone was doing it because you're not allowed to be told. And then I think Magnus's name came up in the booth, like talking to the director. And I was like, oh, look, Magnus from The Last King, you know. And so we kind of chatted about that. And he was really gracious because obviously he was in all the time. And every now and then I'd get a lovely message from him being like, hey man, I'm just doing some more stuff with your character and it's so great. And everyone's really happy with it and this, that, and the other. And that was really, really cool. And that was also the beginning of like my journey into video games as a voice actor, which is a kind of, fortunately, an ongoing journey. I think I have maybe 3 games that I'm in that are coming out hopefully in the next year. And it's, you know, like probably my main focus, actually. My main focus at the moment is video games and working in video games. I absolutely love it. I can't tell you how much I enjoy it. The level of like satisfaction I get from it is phenomenal. And I'm really, really excited about doing more in that world.